Hey guys, what's the crack? A bit of GCSE physics here. So, a bit of Newton's laws. So it says, a rocket expels hot gases downwards at high speeds. So we've got a rocket. Maybe that's a career you want to go into. Maybe you want to go into rocket science. Maybe you want to work for NASA, work for ESA. Work for NASA is kind of hard if you're British, but maybe work for ESA, the European Space Agency. So again, the rocket expels the hot gases downward. So you've got hot gases coming down from a rocket downwards, right? Everyone's seen that when a rocket takes off. The gas exert a downward force of 1,500 newtons on the air. So the gases put a downward force of 1,500 newtons. Let's complete the sentence. The air exerts an upward force of what on the gases? Okay, so it says, the gases exert a downward force of 1,500 newtons. So the gas in the rocket puts a downward force in the air of 1,500 newtons. So the air is going to put an upward force on the rocket of 1,500 newtons because of Newton's third law. Remember, Newton's third law says if an object A puts a force on object B puts an equal but opposite force on object A. So again, the gases in a rocket push the air down. The air pushes the rocket up with an equal but opposite force. So our rocket is getting pushed up with 1,500 newtons. Now the next question says the weight of the rocket is 1,200 newtons. So remember, if I look at just my rocket, the weight is that downward force of gravity is 1,200 newtons. Okay, now it says calculate the resultant force on the rocket. Now remember, resultant force is we're looking at the difference between the forces. This is Newton's laws. We're looking at one object. We're only looking at the rocket. You might be thinking, we just said here there's another downward force of 1,500, but that's not on the rocket. Remember, this downward force here is on the air, not on the rocket. We're only looking at the rocket. We got the air pushing the rocket upward with 1,500 newtons and the rocket being pulled down to gravity with 1,500 newtons. This is a force on the air, so ignore it because we're only looking at the rocket. So if I look at the rocket, the resultant force is 1,500, take away 1,200, which gives me 300 newtons. And then remember, forces are vectors, 300 newtons upwards. So because there is a resultant force upwards, that's why it's going to accelerate, right? Because remember, the equation from Newton's law is F equals ma. If there is a resultant force, it will accelerate. So that's why the rocket then takes off and moves upwards. So hopefully you find this helpful. And remember, you can always check out my resources or join our online classes for more.